Hola guys and welcome to Kaptorka Prod, when polygons meet desire. My name's Leon and today, as I promised, we're analyzing and recreating Higgs exosuit model, a vessel for his car from Death Stranding to On the Beach. We'll check the topology and then I'll show how I recreated him in Blender 5.0. This rip is also from Connor UK Boy, thank you so much. So grab some coffee, whiskey or both and let's go. You know, when I was importing the eevee file, I was honestly preparing for the worst. Considering the mess Sam's meshes were in, I thought I was about to go through hell again. But I already learned from my mistakes, so this time I decided to properly organize everything, sort the meshes and label them to avoid confusion later on. I expected it to be a long and tedious process, so mentally I was already bracing myself. Higgs has a lot of details in his suit. He's the one of the key characters in the game, so I assumed he'd get a lot of attention in terms of quality. And imagine my surprise when I realized there actually wasn't much work to do. I mean, this is clearly a simplified version of the rip. He just in his mesh outfit, no red cloak, which I kind of expected, and I didn't even hope for the guitars since it's more of an optional prop, but at least we've got the iconic red mask. So I started by separating everything into parts, assigning materials to each object and carefully putting it all back together. But first, I wanted to check the topology, and honestly, considering how detailed Sam's model was in the private room, I was, let's say, surprised. Take a look. The whole scene is around 372k triangles. Here, I'll quickly show all the objects. The mask is about 4.6k. The updated necklace is a bit over 33k triangles. The hair, as before, is the most expensive, ranging from about 700 for the small fuzz strands near the hairline up to 73k. There are hair strands, but fewer than Sam's, still they take up a big chunk of the polycount. There is this low poly head. I have no idea what that thing with open jaw is supposed to be. I thought maybe it was related to his second skin during where he was beaten, but no, there is a proper high poly head for that, just with different shaders. If you know what is this, let me know in the comments. I'm not really in the mood to rewatch the game cutscenes just for that. You can also see the other components here. Anyway, the upper parts of the boots is about 6.7k. I call them stockings. They really look like stockings. I won't list everything. You can see the rest in the footage. The body is about 13.6k. Gloves are around 14k each. The head is almost 12k, and this is what feels so strange. With the eyes, eyelashes and jaw is about 18k. So technically even the necklace has more polygons than the head. And that's when I started thinking, maybe Sam's private room model was basically photogrammetry level because it's confined space and all that, with the in-game model is much lighter. Otherwise, I really don't understand why Higgs got so few polygons comparing to Sam. He's one of the key faces of the game. By the way, I've seen fragile model on DeviantArt in XPS with a cloak. Might be interesting to check that out too. But honestly, right after Sam's private room model, the contrast here is pretty sharp. Anyway, I sorted everything. Time to set up the shaders.
A few moments later.
So shaders are done. I won't go through every settings. They're pretty similar to what I did with Sam. Thanks to the rip, we actually have good textures here, even alpha maps. Usually in games they're hidden in channels and you have to extract them manually in Photoshop. His new mask is actually very interesting in terms of design. You can see it has something like an upper jaw. As far as I remember, this mask wasn't static. It could actually convey emotions. I tried tweaking making it through its own armature, but that didn't work. It's possible it was done using blend shapes. Hard to say for sure. As far as I understand, there's also another version of the mask with golden teeth, but it's not present here. I want to highlight one thing. Those guts, well, not really guts, more like tubes. You remember how cool they looked in the cutscenes? That deep shading effect is actually done with alpha map, and since they were animated, it looked like they were floating in murky liquid. Really cool effect. Hair maps, as you can see fewer than Sam's. The diffuse textures come into two versions, lighter and darker. Since Higgs has something like reverse ombre, I mixed them, lighter on top, darker on the bottom, and when the planes blend you get that effect. His also has small fuzz strands near the forehead. That's add a lot of realism, especially since that area updates first. I've got the same thing myself, always there. Now about the face. Before I should say, I'm not trying to devalue work of the professionals, but as someone who often digs into game files, when I opened Higgs face diffuse texture, I was a bit confused. We have really solid maps overall, good metallic balance, nice highlights on the smeared makeup and lips, but then diffuse texture looks weird. Like someone just roughly painted over it with a Photoshop brush in gold tones mixed with other colors, and sure, the surface detail is there, everything technically fine, but those sloppy brush strokes really threw me off. It instantly reminded me of my own stupid workflow when I used to paint normals with Photoshop brushes or tweak eyelid shadows after generating characters in CC4. But that was me, an amateur, and this is a AAA character. I might have ignored it if it wasn't for the contrast with the detailed white powder. You can see how it flakes off naturally. That looks incredibly realistic. I even had similar makeup back in the day when I was in gothic subculture and still consider myself an alt person, and that white powder flaked exactly like that. Then this messy brushwork right next to it. And I just don't understand. Even it's supposed to be some chiral substance or whatever, it could be done other way, especially for game like this where they know people will dig into the files. Honestly, I have a theory, just my personal take, that Higgs design used to be different, maybe closer to Eric Draven. The roughness and other maps suggest something more refined, but at the last moment they probably changed the makeup and just quickly painted over the lips. Maybe it looked fine in something like Substance Painter, so they just left it as it is. Look, I know in production there are masks and layered systems and all that, but here's just a diffuse map, and those black strokes on the lips become especially noticeable when I opened his mouth. I'll show the full version at the end. The eyeliner, by the way, is fine. It matches the original Higgs, that thick back outline. One more detail. The famous chest reservoir, the plate where the ribcage and those tubes are moving underneath. I mixed transparency with a standard principled BSDF to create a semi-transparent mesh so you can actually see what's inside. For the gold materials, I combined two shaders and emphasized the reflective properties to match the in-game look as closely as possible using a mixed shader. And yeah, no Tonga with tentacles here, obviously just Troy's teeth scan. I feel like I know it by heart at this point after working so much with the Higgs model from the original game. Now the jaw actually looks more realistic. Before the teeth all started at the same level, but now some of them slightly protrude from the gums. That actually happens over time in real life too. Overall, I've been talking through all this. I think I managed to recreate something decent. Not perfect, not flawless, but good enough for rendering. I won't merge the low poly head, but I'll combine the rest. And here's what I ended up with. Now, just like with Sam, I can set up a simple base pose and check how Higgs looks in environment lighting. And That's it. If I'm being honest, after Sam, I expected a much high poly density. Still, since this model is lighter than Sam's, I can easily bring it to CC4 for machinimas. I've seen my double sausage pizza thing blowing up on TikTok, and even though my sense of humor is terrible, I do have an idea for at least one short animation. Then we'll see what else we can do with him. I also got the Dark Place sitting idle and really want to get back to making a proper short film. Thanks for watching, take care, ciao.